Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Nami vs Hancock by FoxChicken19. Oh? What's this? Boa Hancock is visiting the Straw Hat crew. What? And why is she hanging all over Luffy? Nami, step it up! What are you gonna do? The warlord of my channel are. NeoEsker23, Derek Dowdy, Zazu Syaz, Abdul Raf Ali, N3WT, What _ if _ Lord, Black Money _ Young Leon, Garrick Russell, Ben Brownlee, Case Clark, Tristan Ward, KSGPL4YZ, Brian McKenzie. Join the channel membership if you would like to support the channel. Adios.
Nami vs Boa Hancock. I didn't really understand why she was on this boat. Just that I wanted her off. She had leapt aboard not even a minute ago, and already Luffy's merry greeting was swallowed by her breasts. That made me angry. Who is she to think that she could waltz aboard and be all over our captain? I stepped over Sanji, who was currently drowning in a pool of blood spewed from his nose. Zoro had his hand on his swords, ready to draw and kill if the situation so called. Brook was running up to her, but my fist ran into his jaw by habit as his 5 fatal words began to emerge from his lip. "May I see your pant?" In the corner of my eye, I could see Chopper, failing at his attempt to hide. Usopp was nowhere to be seen. Frankie was below, filling Sunny with cola, and Robin was standing off to the side simply watching as the situation unfolded. "Hancock." Luffy's muffled cry was barely heard, his words eaten by the crevasse between her breasts. "Long time no see." "Let's get, I'm not marrying you," Luffy said. He pushed her away gently. I could almost hear the pop as his head came out of such a daring place. "Hancock," I began. "That's Empress to you," she turned on me. "Eh? Hancock," Luffy frowned and crossed his arms at her harsh tone. "They're my nakama." "My apologies, Luffy," she blushed incredibly just by hearing him say her name. "What are you doing here?" His frown exploded into a smile, as if it had taken every effort on his part to keep that frown as long as he had. "What about your kingdom?" "I wanted to see you," she murmured as she pressed herself against his arm. She looked at the floor, made shy by her own boldness. "I'm not marrying you," he repeated, laughing. She, so what are you doing here?" "I really just wanted to see you," she said earnestly. She was really pretty when she blushed profusely. It made me hate her a little bit. Her ship started pulling away from ours. Surprised, I cried out, "Hey, your ship." "It's fine," she said coldly. "Oi, Hancock, your ship," Luffy said, pointing with his one hand while the other anchored his hat onto his head as a gust blew over us. "It's fine, Luffy," she said. "They'll be coming back in a week, after we're." "I'm not marrying you," he repeated, his silly grin disappearing for the briefest of moments. His hands flew to his stomach. "Oi, Sanji, food." "It doesn't look like he'll be getting up anytime soon." Robin looked down at him. I could only clench my fists watching Luffy and Hancock touching nonchalantly. What on earth had happened between them on her island, Amazon Lily? They were speaking of marriage, for goodness sake. "Chopper," I called, turning away. "Sanji." Chopper ran forward. "Usopp, we're going to need to train his resistance more." "Sanji, food." Luffy knelt beside our cook and poked him in the side. "Luffy." Chopper swatted his hand away. "I'll cook for you, Luffy." Hancock avoided his eyes. "Really?" Luffy jumped up and started pulling her towards the kitchen. "Food, food, food." "It's so nice to have a woman cook for us once in a while," Frankie laughed. "Yo-ho-ho. My stomach is filled with butterflies," Brook said. "Of course, I don't have a stomach to contain them." Skeleton joke. "Yo-ho-ho." He started hurrying after Luffy and Hancock. "Miss Empress, if I could please see your panties." I hit him with one of the batons of my Kleem attack, catching it when it returned. Robin exchanged glances with me. She always had that look on her face that said she knew what we were thinking. The only one she ever really seemed to be surprised at was Luffy, though I found him completely predictable. I put my weapon away and went to occupy myself with adjusting our course to be aligned with the log pose, though we hadn't really drifted too far off. Before entering the dining room, I paused. Briefly, but it was still a pause. Weakness? From what? I didn't feel hungry, but knew I should eat anyway. Her cooking couldn't match Sanji's. Was I becoming spoiled? These thoughts flew through my head in the second it took to open the heavy wooden door. "Oi, you're in my space." Luffy was pushing Hancock away with one hand while grabbing food with the other. "Hancock-san, this is delicious," Robin commented lightly. Zoro, Chopper, Frankie and Usopp were just trying to eat before it disappeared. Brook was dancing around the table with his violin in hand. The scene scared me. More than I'd ever admit. To think they could have a good time when two of their nakama were elsewhere on the ship. One suffering from blood loss, the other from, what was I suffering from? All I knew was that if I had to share a room with her, I wouldn't be so happy in the morning tomorrow. Chapter 2. What are these? Oranges. I snipped a little further on the branch that I meant to. I didn't reply right away, just put the dead pieces of the mikan tree in the basket by my feet. "They're mikans," I replied smoothly. I wouldn't be intimidated by her. This was my ship she was on, and she was interacting with my nakama. She was a visitor, and I could compete with her in beauty easily. I was pretty sure I already beat her in cup size. With a calculating eye I looked her over as I straightened up. So I didn't beat her in cup size. If I couldn't see flesh I swear she shoved melons down there. Watermelons, even. Either way, I still have her a run for her money. I just wished she'd leave the money and get off my ship. "They smell sweet." Hancock raised her hand to touch the smooth exterior of the fruit. If she pulled it off its branch, I'd have to smack her. The one she was reaching for wasn't quite ripe yet. She simply ran her thumb over the surface and dropped her hand to her side. I said, examining another part of the tree. I reached between the branches and clipped a small twig off. I bent down to pick it up. She remained silent. I didn't want to, but I asked, "Have you seen around the ship?" Chopper was really kind in showing me around. Her voice was breezy, as if she knew I was speaking just to fill the silence. I clenched my fist around the fallen piece and felt the bark dig into my palm. I dropped it in the basket and moved on, daring her to speak first. She didn't for the longest time, just moved with me as I moved between the trees that we had on board. I stood up straight, drawing my hand across my sweaty forehead and looking up at the sun for a moment and basking in its warm glow. I checked the log pose and looked over the railing at the crew. Sanji saw me, who was all better now, saw me, and headed inside to make me something to drink, and perhaps a small snack. Well, I hoped there was going to be a snack. From hardly eating earlier, I was kind of hungry. It wasn't until I was tending to the last few branches that needed it that she spoke once more. She was leaning on the railing, facing away from me. Through the railing I could see Luffy, Usopp, Chopper and Frankie trying to play pranks on Zoro as he slept. Robin was nowhere in sight. I could faintly hear music coming from within the cabin, which is where I assumed Brook was. "What's your relationship?" It was a sly question. "We're all nakama here," I answered, finishing up. I took the basket and brought it to the side of the ship. I brought a branch up to my nose, inhaling the sweet citrus scent that lingered even past its death. Then I tipped the basket over, the dead twigs and branches being blown away in a light breeze before actually hitting the water. "That's not what I meant." She hadn't turned when I moved around. Or maybe she did. I didn't really have eyes in the back of my head, although Luffy and the crew sometimes acted that way. She continued, "You know that's not what I meant." The way she spoke irritated me. She changed so much between speaking to Luffy and to anyone else. I set the basket beside the other utensils I used when tending to the mikan trees. Sanji waved up at me as he came out of the dining area. Robin appeared. Perhaps she had been in the aquarium. With a tight grip on the railing as I made my way to the stairs, I barely glanced at her. "I assure you I don't." "Wait," she grasped for my arm, but missed and stumbled forward. She collected herself rather quickly, her flushed face of embarrassment disappearing in mere seconds. I felt disappointed. I really liked to see a girl like her flustered and frustrated. "I meant with Luffy." "What's your relationship?" "With Luffy," I repeated. She nodded. "What's my relationship with Luffy?" I don't know why I was verifying the question like this. I didn't know what she meant. But if this was the only way I could control who was superior and inferior, I'd take it. In a heartbeat. "Empress, my ass." "Yes," she said, blushing. I don't know why. Perhaps it was because relationship and Luffy were in the same sentence. Following the pattern she seemed to be setting, I would have to say that was the case. He's the captain of this ship, I told her. I'm his nakama. Nothing more? She asked. I gave her a funny look and shrugged, not really giving a yes or a no, which I knew would twist and flip inside her until it was unbearable. But having no reason to keep me, I was able to walk down the stairs to the main deck, where Robin and Sanji were chatting beside the lawn chairs and the table there. I picked up my glass as I sat down, enjoying the coolness of the glass in the palm of my hand. Nami SWA, and he greeted me. He used the back of his hand to cover his nose. I pulled my shirt up a little bit at the top to help him recover. Poor Sanji. Landing on an island with a bunch of transvestites, now that was unbearable. Would you like some dainty dishes as well? I have some cooling in the fridge. That would be great, I sighed, bringing my legs up onto the chair and folding them underneath me. It felt great to relax. I checked the log pose as Sanji began to walk away. Working hard? Robin asked, not glancing up from the book in her hand. Always, I said, taking a sip before placing the glass down once more. I wasn't talking about the Mycans, she murmured, using her devil's fruit power to develop another hand to bring her own glass to her lips while she held the book and flipped the page with her actual hands. I watched as the extra hand put the cup down and disappeared. Hancock. I closed my eyes and leaned back. A girl in love is a girl easy to manipulate. Robin chuckled. Is that so? It's why I'll never fall in love, I told her, reaching blindly for my glass. I was so thirsty. I couldn't find it though. I opened my eyes to find Robin teasing me with her extra hands as they held the glass just out of reach. I laughed, leaning forward and reaching across the distance to get it. I hate being the one that gets manipulated. She said, smiling as I brought the drink to my lips. I mocked slightly as I felt the cold liquid substance slide down my throat. I closed my eyes in bliss because sometimes Sanji's dishes could only be described that way and relaxed. If I were to have a devil's fruit, in that moment, I would be a woman that could melt into a puddle. That's how relaxing I found our Thousand Sunny to be. Though it was usually minus the Empress, of course. Zoro sleeps really heavily, Luffy grumbled. His voice was right beside my ear. The chair creaked under his weight as he leaned on the back of it behind me. Keeping my eyes closed, I held the drink a little tighter and a little further out of reach. Don't, I told him. I'm not doing anything, he said. You're eyeing my drink. Don't, get Sanji to get you something to drink. Nami, he began. You're scary, you know that. I swung my fist over my shoulder, hitting nothing but air but hearing a soft thump. I opened my eyes and leaned around the chair to see Luffy sitting on the ground, laughing. His hat rested on the grassy deck beside him. You almost got me, but I saw it coming. He got to his feet and picking up his hat as he straightened, with 2 quick brushes, he dusted his hat off with his hands and set it back on his head. Luffy, Hancock appeared. Luffy's eyes were on Sanji though, as he came over with our snacks. Here you are, ladies, Sanji returned, laying the tray out in front of us on the table. Sanji, Luffy grasped his friend, ignoring Hancock. I'm so hungry. You haven't made lunch yet. But you all ate lunch nonetheless. Sanji refilled my drink. Hancock-chan made you a swell meal. Luffy crossed his arms, grumbling. Who told him about lunch? When our food supply goes from about half full to near depletion, what do you expect me to assume? Sanji asked, handing a glass to Hancock. Next time I'm getting myself a cook with short-term memory loss. Luffy slid to the floor beside my chair. He sighed heavily. Hancock was going to break, and dropped to her knees beside Luffy, pulling his head into her chest. It's okay, Luffy, she told him. When my girls come to pick me up, we'll prepare a huge wedding feast, just for you. Then why'd you let them leave? He asked, pouting as he pulled away. I don't even think his mind processed the word, wedding. Hancock got her hopes up, it was clearly readable on her face, until Luffy looked up at her and said, oh, and I'm not marrying you. Dinner's in 2 hours, Sanji sighed. Take it or leave it. Sanji, Luffy's stretched arms held onto Sanji's leg as he tried to walk away. I thought Captain's orders were always final. Why won't you listen to me? Luffy, if he listened to you when it came to food, we'd all be starving now. I brought my hand down hard on his head. He released Sanji and took cover under his rubber fingers. I picked up one of the snacks and took a bite. Luffy was practically hanging off my arm as I took a bite. "Oh, Luffy," Hancock was frowning with pity for him. My gaze slid between the two, and a sly grin grew on my face. Should I? I really wanted to see her get angry. But Robin was watching. Robin was always watching. Screw it. No, I'd have to put up with Robin for longer than I'd have to put up with the Empress. But now that the idea was in my head, I had that itching feeling. I was pulled taut between the two sides. Nami, Luffy was still pouting. "Are you going to eat those all?" "Here, Luffy," I said, holding my hand under my other to catch the crumbs. I held out the snack I had just taken a bite out of. Say ah. He didn't understand what was going on, but Luffy was never one to deny food. He opened his mouth, and I placed the snack in his mouth. His lips nearly closed around my fingers as he swallowed the snack whole. His eyes closed as he smiled happily for just a little food. I smirked up at Hancock as I patted his cheek lightly and said, "Good Luffy." I got up, picking another snack and taking my drink with me as I went. "Oi, Nami," Luffy called. "What about the rest?" "All yours," I called over my shoulder. I glanced back at Hancock. She was watching me angrily. I stuck my tongue out at her and winked before mouthing the words, "Indirect kiss." I could practically see the flames rolling off of her as I turned to head to my room in search of a book to read. Robin's chuckle followed me to the door. I couldn't help but feel like I've won this round. Nami. 1. Hancock. 0. Chapter 3. I hummed as I poured water over myself. After a hot day, there really was nothing like a bath before bed. This had to be my pride and joy. I was really thankful for Frankie for building a bath on our Thousand Sunny. I sighed, trailing my hands across the surface of the water and sinking in. I exhaled as I relaxed. Despite being a pirate, I felt like I was living the life. There came a knock on the door. I lifted my head, glancing over. "Robin, is that you?" No reply came. "If it's one of you guys, and you're here to peek, I'm charging you. And I'll want it up front," I called out. Silence still. Daringly, I asked, "Hancock?" "That's Empress to you." She snapped through the door. Well, I knew Luffy wasn't around. I got up, grabbing the towel and wrapping it around me as I went. It was debatable as to whether I really wanted to open the door. Well, it wasn't, I didn't want to at all. But I wasn't a demon, although the guys might say otherwise. I opened the door and stepped aside, allowing her to come in. Well, I waited 5 minutes first before actually opening the door. Her being here shouldn't have to change the way I go about my day. She didn't, and won't ever, take priority in my books, and I wanted her to know that now. I closed and locked it behind her, heading back to the bath. I dropped my towel and stepped in, dipping down into the warm water. "It's a nice bath," she commented. "Yeah," I said, acting as she had earlier. She just stood there. After a pause I asked, "Are you getting in?" "I don't usually bathe with anyone but my sisters," she said, hesitant in the first time speaking to me. Then she went on, and that hesitation disappeared. Only great people should be able to see the beautiful, bare skin that I possessed. She was leaning back so that her face was aimed at the ceiling. I didn't get it. Was that supposed to be her looking down at me? All the rest of her body signs showed it. The arrogant stance, her hand lifted as she laughed loudly. It was just her head that was weird. I wanted to lean forward to see if anyone was trying to pull her head off from behind. I kind of wish someone would. I think I'd strip her of those golden snake earrings first though. I didn't say a word about it, though even I thought there were some things better left unsaid. "Your loss," I replied. "The water is perfect." I grabbed the soap and began washing up. By the time I reached my stomach, she was shedding her clothes. "Turn around," she said, nearly undressed. I obeyed, though I didn't see why I had to. I continued to rub the soap against my skin. The water stirred as she got in. When I turned around, she was facing me, and I really had to wonder if she had been so shy, why was it all right now? "You really have no relationship with Luffy?" she asked immediately. I tossed the soap at her and leaned against the edge of the bath. She caught it, and looked at it for a moment before beginning with her shoulders. I faced towards the door, closing my eyes as I sighed. "That's not really an answer," she muttered. "That's not really a question," I retorted. "I do have a relationship with Luffy. I said earlier, we're nakama. But you're not romantically interested in him. Not necessarily, I opened my eyes the tiniest bit. It was so steamy in here. I was feeling tired. It really was almost time for bed. Not necessarily, she repeated. What does that mean? Nothing, I said, shaking my head. There's no reason for me to like Luffy. He's our goofy captain. He's an idiot. He eats way too much, and that's where half of my precious money goes. He's always getting us into trouble. Besides, there'd be no point in liking him. The things he has on his mind are limited to food, adventure, beating all those bad and manipulating pirates out there and becoming Pirate King. A Pirate King and an Empress would be perfect together, she sighed. I watched as she washed her long hair. She smiled slightly at the idea of being together with Luffy with such titles. A Pirate King and an Empress. Please. Empresses go with emperors, and kings with queens. That's the way the world worked. I rolled onto my back and lifted my leg into the air. I wiggled my toes before splashing it down. Water hit my cheek, making me close my eyes tightly in the slight fear of getting hit in the eye. I opened them slowly. What's that scar? She asked. Scar? I looked down to where she gestured. My arm, where my tattoo was. The knife I had dug into me, when I had been desperate to get rid of Arlong's tattoo, had left only the smallest of scars because that's how good the doctor of my village was. I was surprised Hancock had noticed it. My tattoo covered it, for the most part. Even looking in a mirror it was hard to see. I had been branded once, I told her. A tattoo of a fishman pirate from the East Blue. He had me under his control for 8 years, then Luffy showed up. I could have left at any time, but I would have only been saving myself. Luffy saved an entire island. Luffy saved my island. I paused. Luffy saved me. I got out of the bath a second time. I stretched before grabbing my towel and drying off. With it wrapped around me I headed over to where my clothes were, and began putting them on. I see, she said finally. Do you? I murmured. It must have been hard for you, she commented. I turned to her, but she was facing away, her face looking down into the water as she made it ripple with the droplets that fell off her fingertips. It was, I agreed. I paused, but that doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is that they're safe now, and I can be here on the Grand Line without having to worry if they're all paying the taxes all right. So, you're indebted to Luffy, she sighed with relief. So you really don't love him? No, right now he's in debt to me for a couple of thousand belly. I pulled my shirt over my head, bringing my hands underneath my hair to pull it above the fabric. I grabbed a dry towel and ran it over my hair a few times before laying it over my shoulders to keep my clothes dry. You make him pay back money even after he saved you and your island? She made it sound like I was crazy. I grinned, heading for the door, strapping the log pose to my wrist as I went. Why? I paused just before I unlocked it, and glanced over at her. Because the thing I love most in the world is money. Loving money makes for a lonely world, she called to me as I exited the room. Those words made me stop for a moment. Not that I thought she was right. I mean, I love money now and I had my nakama. I balanced the two perfectly. Still, I clenched my fist, partially turning as I pulled the door shut. I told her, and an unrequited love makes for a painful world. And with that I left, my destination my bedroom. I glanced at the log pose, standing and facing the bow of the ship. It was a little off. I stopped all actions for a moment, just feeling the rocking of the boat. I headed to the main deck to check the wind and height of the waves. It was a strong wind. Pressure was changing. Sanji was smoking by the railing. Hey, Sanji, I called. Yes, Nami SWA, and his facial expression changed immediately. Seems like there's going to be a small storm early tonight. Raise the sail, won't you? I asked. I know we usually do it a little later, but if that storm hits us we're going to be blown pretty far of course. It's going to be a windy one, though not the worst we've experienced. I'll get right to it, Nami SWA, he said, dancing away. I leaned against the wall, tucking my hair behind my ear and staring up at the starry sky. If I couldn't read the waves and weather so well, I'd say that it was going to be a clear and peaceful night. Or at least as peaceful as it could get when you had to share a room with an empress. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Nami, Luffy's head hung in front of me when my eyes snapped open. I hardly batted an eye. This stuff was so natural for all of us. He was a rubber man. I followed his neck to the deck above me. I looked back down at Hide Down. Those straightforward eyes were definitely, and always would be, Luffy's. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Just fine, why?" I shrugged. His hand stretched out to scratch his head, frowning slightly, just a feeling. "Hancock's in the bath." I couldn't stop the words before they jumped off my tongue. "Were you in the bath with her?" he asked. For a few moments, I tucked my hands behind my back, squishing them between me and the wall to prevent tight clenching. Just because I brought it up doesn't mean he had to be so interested. "I'm surprised." His head snapped back, and he jumped down in front of me, bending deeply at the knees before straightening and turning to face me. "So you saw her naked?" I could feel my eyebrow twitching. "Stop it." I brought my one hand up to my forehead and rubbed it to calm it down. "I did, but I didn't." She made me turn around as she got into the water. "I see." A breeze swept over us as we stood there in silence. The hat that made us famous as pirates was resting on Luffy's back. It lifted as it caught the wind, but Luffy had it tied. He was looking off into the distance. He looked distant. I felt my hand reaching for him, as if to make sure he was standing right there, but his gaze snapped back to mine and he just laughed. Quickly, I put my hand behind me again. She. His gaze caught on something above us. "Oi, Sanji, what are you doing up there?" Raising the sails, I responded, although he hadn't asked me. "Small storm tonight. High winds. Already picking up." "Are you sure you're okay, Nami?" he asked again, holding his chin and frowning as he accessed my behavior. "Yes," I answered. "I'm just tired. I'm going to bed now. Excuse me." "Nami," he caught my arm as I brushed past him, bringing me to a halt. Shivers ran up and down my spine. I looked at him, and watched as he waited a few seconds before bringing his eyes up to mine. "If you have any problems, I want to know." Nakama talk to each other when they're feeling down. I relaxed, smirked, and peeled his fingers off of me. "Thanks, Luffy. But I'm fine." "Really?" His serious eyes started to shine as he smiled. He slapped my back, making me stumble forward. I fell to my knees, and I rolled into a sitting position, ready to hit him for treating me so roughly, especially when I had the log pose on me. But he was laughing, a hand resting on his stomach as he faced the sky. His laughter echoed on throughout the night. "Luffy," I began, but he had tilted his head so far back that he hit it off the wall. I laughed at him as his laughter roared louder. It was contagious. I wiped the tears that came to my eyes as our laughter died into giggles. He knelt down in front of me and grabbed my cheeks with his rubber hands and grinned wider. "Yosh, that's better." "What?" I asked, swatting his hands away. "You're happy again." His smile didn't falter. "We're Nakama. We're supposed to laugh and cry together." "I'll keep that in mind." I rolled my eyes getting up. I looked up at the sky, as the clouds started to cover the stars. It really is going to rain soon. I saw Hancock standing above us, dressed normally. I couldn't read her eyes clearly in the darkness, but I was sure she was glaring at me. I beamed in the fact that I was still manipulating her, even now. But the moment was ruined when Luffy looked up at Hancock. He looked back down at me, and opened his mouth to say something. "Luffy," Hancock called. "You promised to talk to me after I took a bath?" "Hi," he nodded, glancing up again. "Good night, Luffy," I told him, rolling my eyes. "Don't stay up too late." She. My body felt heavy. That's how I felt the entire trip to my sleeping quarters. My feet moved slowly, and not a single thought really entered my mind. His response to my saying, "Don't stay up too late," was laughter. That pissed me off, but at the same time I could only see his distant face when he was speaking about her. I opened my door, pausing when I saw Robin. She didn't smile when she lifted her eyes from the page. I closed the door and went and sat on my bed. "Not a good bath?" she asked, turning the page. "Great bath," I replied, until the precious Empress entered. Robin smirked. "What happened to manipulating her?" "I'm still manipulating her," I said firmly. That, she closed the book and turned to face me, does not seem like a face that you, who thought of herself as winning, should be making. A hand appeared on my bed and slapped me lightly. "Chin up, Navigator-san. This is not the your Nakama adore." "Adore?" I snorted. Talking like this made me feel more normal. I didn't get why Hancock irritated me so much. "Don't you mean fear?" "Well, that too," she smiled, leaning forward and resting her chin on her hand. But you're not planning on leaving me alone with her tonight, are you? I got up, checking the log pose one more before going and laying it where I usually did on my desk. Empress Sama will want a bed to sleep in, she commented lightly. I rolled my eyes. Let her sleep on the floor, or with the dogs. Too bad the only animals we have on this ship are men, she replied, that sly smile playing on her lips again. Shaking my head, I laughed, but they're well trained. In combat, she murmured. But, I folded the covers back on my bed, bringing up and crossing my legs. No, it's nothing, she stood up. If you find yourself unable to sleep, I'll be reading in the aquarium. Thanks, Robin, I called after her. She didn't reply. I smiled anyway. I slapped my cheeks and said into the empty room. Okay, bring on tomorrow. However small the pep talk I gave myself was, it was enough to snap me back to the reality of the situation. This was my ship. These were my nakama. Luffy was my captain as well as my savior, and no matter what she did, my position amongst everybody couldn't be shaken. Still, I couldn't help but feel frustrated when Hancock came in later. Much later. I closed my eyes tightly. Yes, tomorrow I would knock her down to where she stood on this ship. Shichibukai or not, no one messed with me on my own grounds. Chapter 4. I frowned. Something cold was resting against my foot. I wiggled my toes and opened my eyes, sitting up and flinging the covers away. I opened my mouth wide and Nami. The door flung open in reaction to my scream. Hancock was missing. I realized this only after I noticed I was standing on a chair across the room. At the foot of my bed was a snake. A large one. White and red, with a skull placed over its face. Zoro and Sanji grinned when they saw it, and I was already thinking I knew what we'd be having for lunch and or dinner that day. Oh, Hancock appeared. That's where you disappeared to, Salome. I closed my eyes, angry. I could feel my vein pulsing on my forehead and tried hard to refrain from throwing the nearest and heaviest thing I could find at the spoiled empress. Of course the snake was hers, a venomous pet for a toxic woman. Chopper ran into the room, looking surprised when he saw the snake. His initial reaction was already fear, but when it hissed at him, he leapt across the room and into my arms yelling, "Ah!" I held him close as I stepped down and off the chair. How long has this thing been on board? I asked coldly, now calm knowing the situation. Since I arrived yesterday, she said simply. The snake wrapped itself around Hancock, who looked completely comfortable. Salome follows me wherever I go. How loyal, I said sarcastically, brushing past her. I placed Chopper outside my door, and watched as he scampered quickly away. I wondered what the snake had said to him. I turned back to the three standing in my room. I looked briefly at Hancock before setting my eyes on the two bozos. How in the world did such a large snake get past the two of you? Let me make a correction, Hancock said coldly. Salome has been following the ship since I got on board yesterday. Salome must have gotten tired. She stroked the scaly face of the legless creature. You have bad naming skills, I told her. As if you're any better, Zoro muttered under his breath. It doesn't matter what I name anything, Hancock said, betting her eyelashes, because even it's a god-awful name, everyone will forgive me. I forgive you already, Hancock-sama, Sanji said, his heart practically jumping out of his throat. Zoro rolled his eyes and just began walking out of the room. I enjoyed Hancock's expression of momentary confusion as I went to my dresser, grabbing a new shirt. Sanji, seeing my getting ready to change, left immediately. If it had been 2 years ago I would have had to yell at him, hit him, or something. It made me almost feel sad that we didn't have that routine anymore. Sometimes I couldn't help but see the changes that everybody has gone through. No, in the end, we were, and always would be, nakama. And nakama always came first. Luffy made sure of that. Luffy was what held us together. Truthfully speaking, if it weren't for him I'd never have even thought about becoming a pirate. I was glad I did. I've seen more gold out here on the Grand Line than anywhere in the East Blue. If only everybody didn't have such bad spending habits, we'd be rich. Not a snake person? Hancock asked. I'm not necessarily not a snake person, I answered. I just prefer animals with legs and fur. I hate cute animals, she muttered. I also hate things that block my path. Or people that don't listen to a word I say. And people that don't think I'm the most beautiful woman in the world. I couldn't help but roll my eyes as her list went on. As her head leaned back further in arrogance, I slipped out the door, heading for the dining room on the second floor, where I hoped to find breakfast. Sanji was still working on it, but was nearly done. Man, I wish I could have eaten that snake. Zoro's voice was muffled, his forehead against the table. I wish that snake would have eaten her, I grumbled. That was not something I wanted to wake up to. I woke up to something I didn't want to see, Usopp said walking in. Hancock was watching Luffy as he slept this morning, sat right beside his bunk. Robin walked in as he spoke, and slid into the seat beside Zoro and across from me. She exchanged a look with me as she said, "A girl in love, him?" Indeed, I murmured under my breath, stretching and leaning back. Luffy ran into the room. "Nami, what happened? I heard you scream." I brought my fist down on his head. "And what makes you run to the kitchen first instead of my room? What if it were some pervert?" Why would anybody want to lay a hand on a dangerous woman like you?" he asked. I hit him again. "If there were a pervert, he'd be dead by now," Zoro agreed. "You have quite the reputation." Hancock entered the room. I guess she finally realized I'd disappeared. She spotted Luffy, and her eyes melted and a blush crept into pale cheeks. "Morning," Luffy greeted, swinging his legs back and forth on his chair while waiting for breakfast. He didn't bat an eye at the large snake still coiled around her. "Luffy," she began. "I'm not marrying you," he laughed. She giggled girlishly, covering her mouth with her hand as she did so. Salome unraveled itself from Hancock's body, and then coiled into some kind of chair, which Hancock sat on without batting an eye at the head of the table beside Luffy. She caught my eye and smiled sweetly. It was sickening. "Oi, where's Chopper?" Luffy asked suddenly. "Ask the snake," I muttered. Salome's very good at tracking. Hancock rubbed the snake's head as Sanji came with the food. I bit the inside of my lip. I bet she could understand the snake, the damned snake empress. I pushed my chair back and got to my feet. "I'll go find him." "No need, Nami," Frankie said, walking in. Chopper was practically clinging to his leg as they walked over and sat down. I remained standing for a moment before taking my seat once more. "You don't look like you slept well," Usopp commented suddenly. Me? I passed a hand over my face. "Well, I suppose I could have slept better if somebody hadn't been laughing in her sleep." The Empress ignored me, leaning on the table and watching Luffy as he began eating. I sighed, rolling my eyes and grabbed food to fill my plate. "Hey, Robin, let's play chess later," I said. "All right," she agreed, smiling warmly at me. Salome hissed again, and I watched as Chopper shivered. "Stop it," I muttered. Nami?" Luffy asked, pausing with the plate half lifted to his mouth and his head slightly tilted back. I looked at him. "It's nothing." He shrugged before going on to shovel the food down his throat. I glared at the snake, which in turn seemed to be smiling back at me. Like pet, like owner. They both irritated me. Same arrogance, that was for sure. Yo-ho-ho, Brooke burst through the door. What a pleasant scene to feast my eyes on. Of course, I don't have eyes to see with, skeleton joke. He came and sat at the table, before swinging his body to face me to ask, "Nami-san, may I see your pant?" I rubbed my sore fist as I went back to eating. "You're running late, Brooke," Zoro said, smacking Luffy's hand as it came near. There was this song that was running through my head that just had to be completed, he began. "Oh, why don't I just sing it for you?" He seemed to pull a violin out of nowhere. He cleared his throat before touching the bow to the instrument. He drew out the first note, long and low. He smiled before he broke into an entire song and dance. Luffy laughed, patting his stomach as he did so. Trying to keep from laughing as Luffy and Usopp started to dance beside Brooke, I glanced at my wrist to look at the log pose, but I realized that I'd forgotten it in my bedroom. I gripped my wrist with my other hand as I stood up. It must have been because of the snake commotion this morning. I left the dining room, heading down to the lawn deck, then up to the other part of the second floor, the girls' quarters. I picked the log pose up from the desk and strapped it to my wrist. Then it was up to the third floor to take the helm. "Need help?" Chopper appeared. "Hard to starboard," I told HI. He changed forms to help me get back on course. I looked up. Looks like Zoro and Sanji haven't let the sails down yet. "I'll do that too," Chopper said. "Thanks, do that first," I told him. I waited a moment, listening to the faint music, before asking, "So what has the snake been saying?" That he could swallow me whole, Chopper muttered as he walked past. That he was going to stalk me until I was least expecting it. So Hancock and Salome really are similar. I leaned on the railing, crossing my arms and bending over to rest my chin in the crevasse created. I closed my eyes and opened them as the whoosh of the sail coming down distracted me. I turned and looked up, and saw Chopper leap from the mainmast to the foremast, where he let that one down too. He swung down, landing on the deck and taking up the helm again. The boat began to turn, the sails catching the wind nicely. I still had to tend to my Mycans. I should probably put the map I finished in my room in the library to store. Later I would play a game of chess with Robin. She'd probably win, though I like to think I gave her a good run for her money. We never did bet money though. A shame. If we did, I might have full motivation to win. When are we supposed to be arriving at the next island? Chopper was back to his small form beside me, leaning with his head between the rails. Sometime today, hopefully, I told him. It's good, because I think we both need to get off this boat for a little while. He nodded, looking up at me. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. He looked over at the other side of the ship. Hey, Nami? Yeah? I asked. Is that over there another ship? I squinted into the distance, shielding my eyes from the blinding light of the sun as it steadily rose higher into the blue sky. It was almost as if the small storm the night before hadn't existed. I can't tell. I dropped my hand. I headed for the crow's nest, climbing the ladder as quickly as I could with Chopper following me closely. I grabbed the binoculars and looked out again. Yeah, I answered finally. It's another pirate ship. Do you think they see us? Chopper asked. I replied. They appeared to be heading straight for us. I handed him the binoculars and turned on the microphone for the loudspeakers. I cleared my throat before I spoke. I smiled when I thought about Luffy's reaction. I couldn't help it. He'd grin. That would be his first reaction. Then he'd run out and up to the third floor deck to try to see it. See if they were bad guys or good guys, or strange guys that he would probably try to get to join our crew. I hoped they weren't any strange guys. Sometimes Luffy seemed to only attract the strange ones. But still, it had to be done. I continued to smile, but after a small pause, I said, Luffy, you're going to have some fun today. Here come some pirates. Chapter 5. Luffy burst out of the dining room with a huge grin, looking around wildly. He ran up to the third deck, looked out, and then up at me. I pointed in the general direction of the enemy, and he squinted into the distance. Then he laughed loudly. The pirate ship came steadily towards us. I gave it 5 to 7 minutes until it was totally upon us, giving the speed of the wind in its direction. Turning the microphone off, I headed down to the deck below as the guys started filing out of the dining room. Sanji lit up a smoke as he waited, and Zoro rolled his shoulders, his hand ready to draw his katana. Chopper dared to come down from the crow's nest as Hancock and Salome came out. He stuck close to Usopp, who was on standby by the cannon. Robin, Brooke and Frankie all came up behind me. Frankie slid his sunglasses on. I feel like we haven't fought with anyone in forever. I was starting to get restless. We fought at the last island, 2 days ago. Usopp shouted at him. Yo-ho-ho, Brooke laughed. It's quite the large ship. The bigger the better, Zoro called. He clenched his fist around the hilt of his katana. I'm going to cut that ship in two. Not until after I find the treasure, I told him. We're running low. We won't be able to afford Luffy's stomach otherwise. You guys need to budget more, Luffy said. It's all you. Sanji kicked the captain, a vein visibly throbbing in his forehead. Hancock looked offended, as if she'd been the one to be kicked. Oh, how I wished. Oi, Nami, how long until it gets here? Luffy called down to me. About 5 minutes, I told him. I hope they don't run away when they see our flag, Usopp laughed. During those 2 years I got quite the title of being invincible. Really? Chopper asked him. Ho ho ho, Usopp threw back his head and laughed. Why, there was this one time when… Wait, Luffy, Hancock shouted. We all turned in time to see Luffy send himself flying over to the other ship. Gomu Gomu no rocket. Oi, Luffy, that's not fair, Frankie shouted after him. No getting a head start. I gripped the railing tightly as I saw his hand still holding onto Sunny. Slowly we began to be pulled towards the other ship, until we were completely airborne and following Luffy. Chopper, I called out. Guard point. He jumped between the two ships, softening the blow as we crashed back down into the sea. Robin caught him before he fell into the ocean and heaved him back aboard. It's the Straw Hat Pirates. They've frenzied in the other ship. If we can take them out, our bounty will go up vastly. Larger fools than they have underestimated us, Robin commented. At least they're raring for a fight, Frankie grinned. He leapt to the other ship. The railing was higher than ours, but the ship's size was more in length and width than height. Gunfire. Gomu Gomu no balloon. What the hell? Crashes were heard from above, probably from Luffy as he repelled the bullets fired at him. What the hell is he? Heh, Luffy laughed. I'm a rubberman, a devil's fruit user. Oh, Robin giggled. I laughed too, they never seem to learn. I think Luffy likes surprising them, she answered. I smiled. Yeah. Luffy would do something like that. I slapped the rail before climbing onto it. Give me a lift. With the help of Robin's devil's fruit, I got up on the railing of the enemy's ship, with no intention of fighting. I'm going to go and find their gold and treasure. I hurried through the battle, trusting my Nakama to not let them lay a hit on me. I threw the door open and went inside. It was time to start my search. A ship with this many crew members wouldn't have to worry so much about hiding their treasure than finding a room big enough to hold all they have found and stolen. It was pure assumption that their gold, and maybe even jewels, were on the first floor. My cheeks lifted into a wide smile when I found it. I tied my hair back as I looked it over. Not bad. There was quite the amount of valuable jewels. Quickly I began to gather it up, and stacking it by the door. That's our gold, someone shouted behind me. Without a moment's hesitation, my perfect Klima tact was in my hand. I swung around to see a large and burly man. I couldn't hide my disgust. He stunk something wretched, and he looked really dirty. My confidence didn't take a stumble though, as I dodged his heavy fist, rolling out of the way. I began gathering cool balls in the air. His hand struck me, or so he thought. I couldn't help but smile as my Mirage tempo did its job. Quickly I made a dark cloud in the room as he turned on me. Somehow I had managed to end up in a corner, but that wasn't important now. Any last words? He asked, drawing his sword for the first time. Obviously I was causing more problems than he initially thought I would. I hated these sexist bastards. Even I could handle like these. I smiled sweetly, goodbye. With a final wave of my perfect Klima tact, I covered my eyes as lightning struck him down. I stepped over his charred body and went back to the pile of treasure. No one stands between me and my gold. Loving money makes for a lonely world. I turned around, but no one was there, and certainly Hancock was above, watching over her beloved Luffy. I clenched my fist and finished tying the last bag closed. I grabbed 4 of the bags and ran outside. At the railing, I tossed them over, watching as they landed on the lawn deck, my tight knots secure even on impact. As I turned to go and get the rest of the treasure, I was frozen in my spot as a sword came flying at me. Zoro had hit it out of one guy's hands. Panic fell over me in the heartbeat that it took for Sanji to obscure its path. He kicked it away. Are you okay, Nami SWA? And he asked. He really had gotten faster in his 2 years away. I'm fine, I told him firmly. Oi, muscle brain, you almost hit Nami. Sanji turned on Zoro. Next time she shouldn't be there, Zoro grunted in return. I rolled my eyes. I glanced around at my surroundings quickly before heading back to grab my treasure. Luffy's hearty laugh could be heard as he smacked these pirates around like flies. And they were flies. Numerous and annoying. Good for nothing, dirty, weak. Plants engulfed a man as I hurried past, and my head swung around to see Usopp. He grinned at me as I went on. All of us had grown so much stronger. Sometimes it still amazed me. But I was stronger too, I mean, come on. Not only did I learn some new fighting techniques, but I improved physically too. I could also carry a lot of the treasure by myself with ease. The bags I stuffed were getting bigger. I just didn't have enough hands to carry it all at once. He's dodging every punch we throw, someone cried out. Luffy. I smiled, not bothering to turn back. If there were one person who could always prevail, it was Luffy, especially with dirty pirates like these. I grabbed another 4 bags, wishing I could grab the last 3 at the same time. 11 bags of treasure. Not bad, not bad. I'd say it'd equal to about 250, maybe 300 million belly. That was a good amount to fill the pantry and fridge, get Chopper and Robin more books, and maybe Brooke would want a new instrument. I distribute a portion of all the belly evenly amongst the crew and keep the rest for myself, in the treasure chest beside my bed. For the first time since Hancock arrived, I felt satisfied. Outside I threw the 4 bags down again, double-checking to make sure none of the other 4 had gone missing while I'd been away. "Nami, watch out!" Luffy jumped in front of me as I spun around, throwing his arms around me to shield me as something exploded. All I could smell was sea, sun, sweat and meat. All I could smell was Luffy, and I felt safe. "Yosh," he said, pulling away. "Gomu Gomu no." He brought his hands tight to his side, ready to throw a frenzy of punches. Gatling gun. "She kicked me. You'll forgive me." Hancock's voice traveled over the ship, "because I'm beautiful." "We do, Marrow, Hancock again." I glanced into stone. Of course a Shichibukai would have a devil's fruit. I realized that I'd let my guard down around her too much. She was a Shichibukai. She was dangerous. "Oi, Hancock." Luffy sounded angry. He went over and placed a hand on one of the soldiers' shoulders. "You made Sanji a statue." "Oh, dear," she appeared flustered to have his anger directed at her. "I'm sorry, Luffy." "It's fine. We'll change him back in a moment," he said, lifting Sanji up over his shoulder. He jumped over the railing and placed him on Sunny's deck. "We should do it sooner," I began. "We can handle this," Luffy grinned. "She got Frankie too," Zoro grunted from a corner where there was still people fighting. "And Usopp," Robin called from above. "I'll turn them back." Hancock stumbled to get the words out. She began using her power. But Luffy stopped her. "When we have them all on Sunny, we'll change them back. If you do it here, they'll all change back." "You grab Frankie," Robin called down. "I got Usopp." "Hi." Luffy nodded, running towards where he had last seen Frankie fighting. I looked around at the men, before stepping back and hurrying to grab the last of my treasure. It hadn't affected Luffy, Zoro or Robin. I hadn't been looking, not knowing how her powers affected the pirates, and I didn't really know where Chopper or Brooke was. I entered the room, picking up the last 3 bags. I glanced around the room to see if I missed anything. All cleared, except for the grotesque man in the corner. I walked down the hallway, not in a hurry now that half the men were frozen solid. I had all my treasure now. I minded a hole in the floor. I hadn't noticed it earlier. This ship was pretty beat up, now that I took the moment to actually look at it. I guess they didn't have a shipwright as good as Frankie. I heard running footsteps under me. I paused. They were light. It definitely couldn't be a man as big as the one in the treasure room. They stopped. A long moment passed and I wondered if it could have been rats or something. Chopper? He'd come and greet me though. Brooke would, too. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, continuing on my way. I exited to the deck and walked amongst the stone men to the ship's railing. Once more, I tossed the treasure over, and listened to the sound of gold hitting more gold with a smile. I followed the path of the bags, leaping over and landing on Sunny. Sanji, Frankie and Usopp were all in their fighting stances. Frankie ready to fire something out of his arm, Sanji with his foot in the air, and Usopp using his black kabuto, aimed and ready to release whatever star he had in his hand. I waved up at Hancock. "Oi, turn them back to normal now." "Ah, yes," she said, turning around to face me. I grabbed my treasure and started bringing it inside. The first 4 bags went up to my bedroom. When I returned for another set, Usopp, Sanji and Frankie all looked mildly confused. They had the common sense to not continue their attacks though. Nami SWA, and Sanji waved wildly as I came down the steps. "What was that?" Usopp asked, clenching his fist. It felt like a lapse in memory. "I didn't like that," Frankie frowned. "Hancock's power," I replied. I nodded up at the other ship. Fighting is still going on though. I grabbed the treasure and continued to bring it up to the girls' quarters as the 3 of them ran off. The last 3 bags I took over to the kitchen, placing it in the corner there to be sorted out later. Maybe I should have left 4 bags to be sorted out, it'd be more equal that way. Would I have to share my finds with Hancock too? Oh, God, I hope not. I left the kitchen, and climbed up onto the other ship to get an idea of the situation. There were quite a few men still active, although they were getting beaten easily by our crew. I sat on the railing, watching as they clashed and collided. As she finished, Robin came down and sat beside me, followed closely by Chopper. What had been those footsteps inside? Easy, I asked. Moderate, Robin replied. Numbers were great. Obviously not great enough, I smirked, leaning back slightly. I heard a small grunt on the sunny, and turned to see a small person jump aboard. I opened my mouth to say something to Robin and Chopper, but the railing gave way underneath me. Stupid ship, I cursed, trying to throw myself forward to catch a solid part of the railing, but that too seemed to break off in my hand. Robin reached for me, but to no avail. My brain seemed to shake within my skull as it struck the deck of Sunny. My hand went to the back of my head immediately, and I blinked hard. My vision was blurry. Nami, doctor, we need a doctor, that's you. Chopper and Robin jumped down to me, followed by Brook a moment later. Or was it Sanji, or had Sanji jumped down after Brook? Nothing seemed clear. Everything seemed rushed and unnatural. Oh, wait. The small person. I should tell one of them. But I couldn't get the words out. I closed my eyes tightly, rolling onto my side, trying to fight down the pain, and hold on to consciousness. Hands pushed me back down so I was on my back. I heard Luffy's voice. It was rushed, worried, but I couldn't tell what he said. My body was lifted off the ground. I forced my eyes open to see an upside-down world. I wondered where we were going. Were they finished fighting? What about the pirate? I needed to tell them about the pirate. And about the treasure. And I needed to tell Luffy. Chapter 6. I took a sharp breath. My head was killing me. I pressed my palm to my temple, opening my eyes slowly. The lights were bright. I closed my eyes again. Nami, Chopper's voice was loud and painful to listen to. I just nodded, which didn't help my headache much. It took a second, but he recognized I was in pain. Oh, just a minute. I forced myself to sit up, watching as he looked for painkillers. I fell, I murmured, remembering. Hi, Chopper glanced over as he got a cup of water. He handed me 2 pills in the cup, then jumped onto his chair. I clenched the pills in my hand for a brief moment before placing them on my tongue. Tilting my head back, I downed the water in one go. Obviously we won the fight. I gagged a little bit from the aftertaste of the painkillers. He smiled. Luffy and Zoro finished it up quickly once you were injured. The wood was rotting, I commented. Frankie was ashamed for shipwrights everywhere, Chopper said. I smiled, imagining just how Frankie must have reacted, despite the throbbing in my head. My smile disappeared after a moment though. I knew it was an rotting ship. I shook my head. I knew it, but... You couldn't have known that the ship was going to fall apart beneath your hands, Nami, he told me. I sighed. You're right. We're going to go through some simple tests, just to check for concussions, Chopper said after a moment of silence. I'm feeling fine, I told him. It's not like I fell from a great height. Nami, he began. If it'll make you feel better, I'll go through with it though, I told him. He jumped down and started to gather material for a few simple tests. Except for my head hurting, I felt fine. I see you haven't been eaten, I commented after a moment. He took my pulse. I've been in here with you since the battle. He glanced up at me as he used a stethoscope to check my breathing. Breath in, now out. He seemed happy with the result, and moved on to the next test. How long has it been? I asked. About 5 hours, Chopper told me. 5 hours was quite the amount of time, especially on the Grand Line. I went to check the log pose, but it was missing. Noticing what I was looking for, he said, Robin took it. She's temporarily navigating. We're still on course. I nodded. Without reason, I inquired, who carried me here? Luffy, Chopper said simply. At first he thought something had hit you, but he was still worried when he found out you'd only fallen. Where is he now? I asked. He glanced at the clock, probably just finishing lunch. Oh, I said. Chopper held my wrist to check my pulse again, this time frowning deeply. What is it? Your pulse is faster than it was earlier, he said. I mean, it's not an unnatural pulse, but... Could it be because I'm talking? I asked. He laughed. I'm so silly, that must be it. Are we done here? I stood up. It took a brief moment to steady myself, but I was fine otherwise. Yeah, we're done, he said. I'd like to check on you later though. That's fine. I headed for the door but paused. We should probably go eat. Let's take the outside route though, I want to check the waves and the weather. He followed me as we exited to the deck. We faced the stern, and I waited a moment, watching the waves as they crashed behind us while we sailed forward towards the ever-nearing new island. They weren't too rough though, despite their large size. The wind didn't have too much pressure to it. I noted the wind direction, then I turned right, to walk around to the dining room. Chopper stayed close, though I wasn't sure if it were for my protection or for his. The kitchen door burst open, and Luffy came out carrying 2 plates of food. He grinned when he saw me. "Oi, Nami, I was just coming to visit," he laughed. "How are you feeling?" "I feel a lot better," I told him. "Now are those plates for us or for you?" "For you, of course," he said. He held it out, and I was about to take it, but he paused. "I'll take it for you. Where do you want to eat? In the dining room?" I opened my mouth to saw lawn deck, but stopped myself. "I feel like eating in the aquarium." "Yosh," he grinned. "To the aquarium it is. Don't you dare touch my food on the way," I warned him. He laughed, she, like I could with you standing right beside me. "I'm glad I ran into you then, or else it'd all be gone." I shook my head as we went down the stairs. I gripped the railing tightly to keep from falling, just in case I felt dizzy again. Our feet touched the lawn deck, and I took the lead so I could open the door for Luffy. Chopper continued to follow us. I didn't mind. Hancock and her snake made me angry furious. It was bad enough she clung to Luffy all day and most of the night, but to make our boat a place where one of our nakama doesn't feel safe? It made me angry just thinking about it. I wished we could leave her at the next port we entered. Leave her there, and never look back. I would smile smugly as I waved, nothing in her view except for Sunny's stern. "Thank you," I smiled at Luffy as we sat down at the bar. He rested his head on its surface, his arms hanging loosely at his sides, and watched me as I began to eat. "You look fine," he commented, furrowing his brow together as he frowned. "I am." I opened my mouth wide to fit a large piece of fried meat in. I chewed and swallowed before I continued. "I only fell off the ship's deck. And at least I landed on the lawn deck." "As long as you're okay," he said. "I am," I repeated. "Chopper?" Luffy sought a professional's take. "She's all right, Luffy." Chopper smiled at our captain, and laughed a little bit. "See?" I leaned on my elbow as I pushed the food around my plate. I forked a vegetable and chewed it slowly. Luffy continued to watch me. When he scrutinized me like this, I felt awkward and avoided his gaze. "How'd you finish them off?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation going. His face brightened instantly. "Well," he went on into detail how after everyone had rushed to check up on me, Zoro and Luffy had to finish the guys off themselves. Well, and Hancock. But even in Luffy's story she seemed like little help. They hurried to finish the fight, Luffy using his Gomu Gomu no Bazooka to push the majority of them out to sea. They let the rest live, and they sailed away in fear. When Luffy began staring at my food, I pushed it between the two of us, dividing the plate in half as to what he could eat and what he dare not touch. He grinned, then asked, "So how long until the next island?" "Should be arriving there soon, tonight at the latest, I'd say," I told him. I looked down at my wrist, but it was still absent of the log pose. "Oh," Luffy said suddenly, sitting up. "Robin told me to give this to you if you were awake." He retrieved the log pose from his pocket. "Thanks," I said, taking it and strapping it to my wrist. "Did you guys ever find the small?" I jumped to my feet suddenly, remembering. "Small what?" Luffy asked. "Nami." Chopper looked worried, and he was probably thinking I was going crazy from my injury. "A small pirate jumped on board," I said. "Did you guys ever find him?" "A small pirate?" Chopper asked. "A stowaway? It's why I leaned back further," I explained. I had seen someone jump from the other pirate ship to Sunny. Then the railing broke. "So there's a stowaway on the ship?" Luffy grinned. "This is great, we've never had a stowaway nakama. If he's a good guy, maybe we can let him join our crew." I rolled my eyes. "Let's worry about that later, and just find him first, alright?" "Yosh," he said, finishing the plate off, even what I told him not to touch. It didn't matter though, it had only been a little bit left. He ran to the door and threw it open, shouting to the rest of the crew, "Oi! Everybody, Nami says we got a stowaway on board." "Well, that doesn't make it inconspicuous," I muttered, following him out to the lawn deck. I looked down at Chopper. "Think you can find him with your nose?" "I'll try," Chopper D Chopper as everyone else started searching too. Nami, Robin called as she came towards us. That was quite the spill. I'm fine, I reassured her. Let's just find the pirate that snuck onto the ship. Nami SWA, and Sanji rushed at me. I was so worried. Thank you, I said before repeating, but I'm fine now. I turned and walked away before he could go on further with whatever gushy lines he could spew. And sometimes Sanji spewed more than I wanted to hear. Chopper waited for me, and I continued to follow behind him. Do you have a scent to go on? I asked. Is this where the pirate jumped down? Chopper asked, pointing. Yeah, actually, I nodded. Your nose is brilliant. Like I'm going to be happy if you say that, bastard. Chopper looked ecstatic. I smiled, taking out my perfect clean attack. Let's follow it. He nodded, leading the way. We didn't have to go far. Actually, we didn't have to go far at all. Our ship wasn't the biggest in the first place, but this was almost ridiculous. We went around the corner of the cabin that held the kitchen dining room, as well as the infirmary and the pantry. Both the pantry and infirmary doors looked over the stern. The infirmary door was on the left side, when facing towards the bow, and the pantry was on the door to the right. We were walking towards the stern on the side closest to the pantry. We turned the corner and Chopper stopped, at the pantry door. It kind of pissed me off. I got hurt, and I was expecting this big search where we tore apart the entire ship to find this small fry pirate, and we walked a total of 50 steps. Walking steps at that. You're sure? I asked. He nodded. How could Sanji not have noticed when he was getting ingredients? I muttered, pausing before I opened the door. The pantry and the infirmary both opened through another door into the dining room. He could have run further than I had initially thought. What if he was dangerous despite his size? I could have almost laughed at myself as I gripped my perfect clean attack tightly. I threw the door open, and somebody rushed out, shoving me back in the process. I stumbled back, the sudden impact making my head spin again. My hip hit the rail and I was worried I'd fall over the railing for the second time that day and Luffy's rubber arm wrapped around me, and he pulled me into him. My head hit against his shoulder, but he was rubber, so it didn't hurt all that much. Still hurt a little bit though. My heart was beating quickly from the small scare I just had. I turned to see his other arm holding the small pirate in place. In the corner of my eye I could see Hancock's angry glare, which almost made me smile. Oi, Luffy grumbled. That's my nakama you're pushing around. I don't care. I hate pirates. It was a child's voice. I pulled away from Luffy, though I would love to see Hancock get even more furious, and went to what I had previously assumed was a pirate. I pulled off the hood that he was wearing, and spun him around to reveal that. It's a girl. Luffy sounded just as surprised as I felt. It's a child. Zoro paused on the steps as he came up. I rolled my eyes at them before turning to the girl. You hate pirates? So why were you on a pirate ship? I was stealing gold. She held her chin up defiantly. And now I'm going to take that gold that you stole from them. She, Luffy laughed, crouching beside me. It's like a mini Nami, ouch. I brought my fist back, crossing my arms. How'd you get on their ship? I don't have to tell you. She crossed her arms too, and turned away. She had to be 12 or 13. I gave her my respect though, for standing up against pirates in the New World. Still, I pinched her cheek, not liking the tone she used when speaking to someone older. She cried out, "Ow! Hey, that hurts." Her stomach growled suddenly, and Luffy grinned, "Are you hungry?" "I wouldn't touch food made by pirates," she said, turning away again. "Your loss," Luffy shrugged, his smile never faltering. "Sanji's a good cook." "What do you need the gold for?" Robin asked. "None of your, hey," I pinched her cheek again. "Hey yourself," I frowned at her. "Show some respect." "You're just like my Oba-san," she grumbled, rubbing her cheek as I released it. Luffy, Zoro and Chopper laughed hard. Robin turned her head away to smirk, and Hancock didn't even bother to hide her satisfied smile. I clenched my fist, ignoring them all. It was a waste of my energy to smack them all, though I almost made an exception for Hancock. "So you have an aunt. What does she think of what you're doing?" "She doesn't know," the girl jerked away from me. "I won't steal your treasure, so just let me off at the next port." I looked at her more closely. Her clothes were something a boy would wear, but I guess when you're her age and trying to steal money from pirates, disguise is the best option. She was hot in her attire, and rolled up the sleeves. The other pirates didn't hurt you, did they? I asked, grabbing her wrist when I saw a bruise. It's none of your business, she shouted. You pirates are all the same, I wish you would all die. Is this your aunt? I asked, holding up a picture. How'd you get that? She asked, reaching into her pocket. What island are you from? I asked, handing it back to her. It doesn't matter, she stuffed the photo back into her pocket. I'm out here on a mission. A mission, huh? And what are these? I asked, holding out wallets. Are they from the other pirates? Is this how you plan on accomplishing your dreams? It's a mission, not a dream, and how? Nami's a thief, too, Luffy said. That's because she's a pirate. The girl grabbed the wallets from me and shoved them down the front of her shirt. You're all just nasty little vermin and… Can I change her to stone? Hancock sighed. She's giving me a headache. And you're an eyesore, she stuck her tongue out at the Empress. Oh, I like this girl. That's not right, Hancock said, because I am beautiful. You really piss me off, the girl glared at her. Hancock looked like she didn't know how to handle this girl. If this young girl wanted money, I was almost willing to give it to her just for that. Almost. But it wasn't a big enough feat for me to actually drop a coin anywhere near her. What's your name? I asked her. She turned her glare on me for a moment before answering. It's only polite to introduce yourself before asking others. I smirked. I'll name you then. How about, Oi, don't name her, Zoro said. He nodded at the kid. Unless you want to be called Eyelash, or Sweater, or whatnot, I suggest you just tell us your name. I think we should call her, Zoro smacked Luffy as he began talking. Don't encourage her naming skills, he told him. Mitsuki. The girl shouted to be heard. When all eyes were on her, she mumbled, my name's Mitsuki. That's a pretty name, I told her. I like it, Luffy laughed. I'm Nami, I told her, holding out my hand. She just looked at it. I sighed, and jabbed my thumb in Luffy's direction. This is our captain. Luffy. Over there is Zoro, Robin and Chopper, and the rest of our nakama are elsewhere on the ship. I'll introduce them as we run into them, I suppose. Who's that? She nodded towards Hancock. No one important, I smirked. She, Luffy laughed. That's Hancock. Hancock blushed when Luffy introduced her. Would you like to clean up? I asked. I could probably find something for you to wear. I have clothes, she said. They're in my bag. Your bag? In the pantry, she answered. I'll get it for you. Chopper started to turn. It spoke. Mitsuki's eyes widened. I said. He's also our doctor. He ate the hito fruit. Devil's fruit, she muttered under her breath. She turned her eyes on Luffy, so you. I'm a rubber man, he said, and I pulled at his cheek to emphasize the point. I'll go get your bag now, Chopper said. No, Mitsuki shouted. I don't want pirates touching my stuff. I'll go with you to get it, I told somewhere where we can talk. She bit the inside of her cheek before nodding. I got it from here. I turned to the others. Get Sanji to prepare something small and bring it to the aquarium. We'll be there to eat it shortly. I checked the log pose before walking away. I led her to the pantry. I entered with her, watching as she retrieved her bag, and then led her to the ladder that went up to the upper deck in the kitchen. Sanji had yet to start cooking. I let her go up first, following behind. We walked past my mic and trees to the observation room. Where are we going? She asked as we entered the library. Bath, I said. This doesn't look like a place for a bath. She looked around at the bookshelves. That's a lot of books. We all do a lot of reading, I replied, pointing her to the next ladder, which led up the bathhouse. Well, except for Luffy. Sometimes I wonder if he's read a single book in his life. You don't sound like you have a lot of confidence in your captain, she commented in a monotone as she climbed. I do, I told her, just not in his literary skills. I stopped at the top of the ladder. You probably don't want to bathe with a pirate, so I'll just tell you where everything is, and then I'll be in the library below. I'm surprised you're so considerate, she said coldly. If you don't want a bath, that's fine, I told her. But a girl should at least try to resemble one. She scowled. I smiled at her before pointing out the basket and distinguishing between the toilet door and the door to the bath. If you need anything, just shout. Shout for the help of a pirate? She muttered as I climbed back down. Like hell I would. I sat down behind my desk, shaking my head. She really did resemble the way I had been once. I smiled, recalling her exchange between Hancock Heck, who was I kidding? She was a splitting image of me now. Yeah. This girl was definitely someone I could get along with. Well, unless she tried to steal my money. Chapter 7. Is that real grass? Mitsuki asked as we headed down to the lawn deck. I replied. Where are we going now? She was still guarded for the most part, even after a warm bath. The aquarium, I told her. We'll cure your growling stomach, and we'll just talk. I don't want to talk to pirates, she said firmly, and I don't want to eat pirate food. Our cook used to work for a famous restaurant in East Blue, I told her. Marines, pirates, and regular East Blue citizens used to eat his dishes alike. How do I know you haven't poisoned it? She asked. Her eyes widened at the sight of the aquarium. I couldn't help but smile. I'll eat off your plate if you want, I offered. I led her to the table where she took a seat, and then I opened the service elevator in the mast and shouted up at Sanji. Oi, we're ready down here. Yes, Nami SWA, and Sanji called back before the food came down. I took it out and placed it on the table, both dishes looking almost identical. See, I wouldn't even know which one was poisonous or not anyway. She still didn't make a move to eat. I rolled my eyes and took a sample of everything off her plate. See? I asked, chewing and swallowing. She shrugged, but started eating nonetheless. It was silent for a few moments, and I chewed thoughtfully as I tried to think of a way to break down her walls. So why do you hate pirates so much? None of my business, right? I interjected. All of us on this ship are ugly, no good, rotten pirates with no hearts and brains. Well, I wouldn't say ugly, but, I laughed. I'm telling you, we're not bad people. If Luffy and Zoro were bad people, I would have run the first moment possible. I used to hate pirates too. Liar, she muttered. It's true, I told her. I bent down to open the small cupboard of alcohol. I retrieved a glass for myself and an old bottle, pouring a little for myself before putting it away. Actually, I probably hated them more than you can imagine. Maybe even more than you, though that's probably hard for you to believe. Then why are you on this ship? She gestured wildly across the room. You smile and you laugh with pirates. They may be pirates, but they're my nakama, I told her. All those pirates out there, minus Hancock, have saved my life at one point or another. Our captain puts our lives above his. She rolled her eyes, stabbing a vegetable and shoving it into her mouth. Yeah, she really did resemble me. I'm the navigator and cartographer of this ship, I told her, swirling the liquid around the glass before taking a sip. I can tell that from the log pose, she said. You have one too, in that bag, right? I asked. She clenched her bag closer to her body. Don't worry, I have no intentions of stealing it, I told her. If you hate pirates, why are you on this ship? She asked, a little more calmly than earlier. I used to be the cartographer of a different crew. I glanced at her. They were a crew of fishmen that resided in the East Blue. They had control over my entire island, including my hometown. She didn't say anything, so I continued. They killed my mother and injured a man I considered my father. Then they took me away from my home and bargained with me. They made a promise with me that if I earned 100 million belly, I could set my village free from their rule. I stopped, just remembering the times. When I closed my eyes I could still imagine Belmere as she was shot. I wondered how Nijiko was doing, and Jen, and everyone else, for that matter. Then, Mitsuki prodded. Sorry, I shook my head, what was I saying? Setting the village from the pirates' rule, she reminded me. Oh, right, I pushed the food around my plate. 100 million belly. For an 8-year-old kid, it was probably an impossible feat. It was nearly impossible once I grew up. But I almost had it. In the end, I had 8 million belly to go. 8. You managed to get 96 million belly? Her eyes widened slightly. After becoming a pirate, getting that much seems like nothing. I grinned a little bit, thinking about the gold and jewels tucked away in my bedroom. With this crew it's more of a matter of making it last. So how do you become a part of this crew? She asked. Her plate was nearly empty. Luck, I guess, I murmured. Luffy quite literally dropped out of the sky as I ran away from another group of pirates I'd stolen from. Zoro showed up shortly after that. We temporarily combined forces, though Zoro was already in Luffy's crew. It was a complicated mess, but despite the numbers we'd won, my voice trailed off again. Even now, Luffy never ceased to amaze me. As I thought about it, the more my chest felt funny. I rubbed at the skin above my breast trying to ease the feeling. I smirked a little bit after the moment's pause. I used them for a while, thinking I'd be able to get out of there in a heartbeat. But it was hard when I tried. We'd found Usopp, our gunner, and Sanji, the cook, by that time, although Sanji wasn't officially in the crew yet. But they followed me to my island, though they had no reason to. Pirates really saved you? She sounded doubtful. Those men out there have the ability to defeat fishmen. I pointed towards the door. Even long before we passed through Fishman Island, they had the experience under their belt. I clenched my fist in the air, and brought it back down to my lap. I turned, resting my elbows on the counter and leaning back and watching the fish swim around in their tank. My Nakama are a force to be reckoned with. They have yet to stop reaching for their goals. Goals, she repeated. You have a dream, don't you? I didn't look at her. Pirates have dreams too. I want to map the entire world. Zoro wants to be the world's greatest swordsman. Sanji wants to find all blue. Robin wants to learn about. And the captain? I smiled. Luffy? He wants to become Pirate King? That's kind of ambitious for a happy-go-lucky guy like him, she muttered. He may seem like an idiot, but he's strong. I stood up and stretched. I felt like a cat after a meal. So strong, he posse's the kindest heart a man could ever have. I frowned as I looked at the fish tank. What that? You like him? What? I scoffed, turning on her. You do. Her gaze didn't falter under mine, as if I rolled my eyes. Was her reply. She kind of reminded me of Robin too. So what's your story? I asked. Was that picture of your aunt? Yeah, the older lady was my aunt, but the girl behind her is my older sister, she answered after a long pause, digging the picture out. My sister didn't like having her picture taken. This is the only one I have. She was kidnapped by pirates. She's being held captive, so I'm trying to gather money to buy her. Everyone in my village is weak, and poor, and more scared for their own lives than the lives of anyone else. Even my aunt. How much are they asking for? It's not just my sister that's been kidnapped. There are girls from other villages too. A lot of them. Each girl costs 20 million belly. And you? I want to save them all, she said firmly. That's a lot of money, I commented. That's why I need the gold you stole from the other ship. Her fist clenched. I don't want my sister to return broken. The girl's voice cracked, and she bowed her head forward to cover her face and the tears that were surely falling. Broken? She nodded. If she was crying, her voice held no trace of it. A few years ago, another girl was kidnapped. She gone for a year, and then was returned. She was lifeless, hardly spoke, and in the end, she ended up killing herself. And the deadline, when your sister's been away for a year? 4 days. Well, as if that wasn't short notice. And the amount of belly you have saved up? Barely enough for my sister. A tear hit the floor. Another quickly followed. Please, please, give me the gold you stole from the other ship. No, her head shot up, surprised by reaction. I thought you would understand. I do, I replies. She took a step back, ready to run from me. I'm not, I told her. I turned partially. Luffy, did you get that? Hi. Luffy walked around the edge of the fish tank. I wasn't sure how long he had been there, but I had seen him through the glass of the tank on the other side. What do you think? I asked him. Sound like an adventure you're interested in. How do we get there? He asked. I looked at Mitsuki, who looked confused at what was happening. Finally she opened her bag and brought out an eternal pose. Furunmei Island. How many days will it take to get there from this next island? I asked her, taking it and looking at the direction. 3, she said, sounding a little uncertain though. Yosh. Luffy looked pumped. First we stop to get food at this island, and then we'll go to that island where your sister is. How long would the log pose take to set on these islands? 3 days to get there from this next island, Akaki Island. If it didn't set in the half day we may be spent on the island, after Furunmei Island we'd have to come all the way back here. And that was assuming that Luffy and the others wouldn't start some trouble on this island. Oi, Nami, Luffy said, taking my arm. What? I asked, feeling chills go down my spine. Sorry, I was thinking. Chopper wants to look you over again, for a small checkup, he told me. He wanted me to tell you that after you finished talking. Luffy's hand still rested on my upper arm. My mind drew a blank for a moment as I stared at his hand. Nami, Luffy looked concerned. I'll go see him now, I said, pulling away from him. I looked at Mitsuki, who was snickering. We should get you checked out too. To the Tanuki doctor? He's a reindeer. I corrected her, leading her to the door. Luffy followed, humming as he tagged along. Oi, Luffy, Usopp called from above. Come here a second. Hi. Luffy shot up there. That was Usopp, I told Mitsuki. I nodded to the front of the ship where Frankie and Brook were conversing. Those two over there are our musician and shipwright, Brook and Frankie. He's a skeleton, she exclaimed, before shivering in disgust. He also ate a devil's fruit, I explained, leading her to the stairs. But despite his appearance, he's a great musician. And he tries to be funny. Tries? She scoffed. He's also a pervert, I told her, but I don't think he'd pull a move on a kid like you. And the funny armed guy? She glanced over her shoulder. That's Frankie. He made himself into a cyborg. Like I said, he's the shipwright. He made this ship for us, I said. He's good at what he does. She agreed, patting the wall as we entered the infirmary. Oh, Nami, Chopper greeted, you're here. Luffy sent me up. I sat down on the bed. Not knowing what else to do, Mitsuki sat beside me. Mitsuki should be looked over, too, I told him. I'm fine, she began. Think of it like a checkup, I told her. She didn't say anything, just sighed and looked around the room. Chopper took my blood pressure again. Pulse is better this time. Chopper smiled at me the moment he started taking my heart rate. I rolled my eyes. Of course it was, I wasn't talking. Chopper. Luffy appeared in the doorway. How's Nami? I'm fine, I told him. Nami, your pulse is rising again, Chopper said. Mitsuki laughed. Is there something wrong with Nami? Luffy asked. I don't know, Chopper stumbled over his words. I feel fine, I insisted. I know what's wrong with her, Mitsuki grinned. Chopper looked at her. Are you a doctor too? No, Mitsuki laughed, as if Chopper was telling a joke, but I believed he was quite serious. I'm just a girl. Then how do you know what's wrong with her? Luffy tilted his head, confused. Mitsuki smiled innocently, and then jumped off the bed, going over to Chopper and whispering in his ear. Luffy and I exchanged glances. I see, Chopper exclaimed. So what's wrong with me? I asked, giving them all the benefit of the doubt. Absolutely nothing, Mitsuki grinned. What a relief. I rolled my eyes. I stood up and stretched, checking the log pose. Give Mitsuki a checkup. I'm going to go change the course a little. Hi, Chopper said. I exited into the kitchen, Luffy following after me. I ignored him for a while until I was beside Frankie at the helm. Easy to port, I told him, and then I turned on Luffy. What's wrong with you? I'm still trying to figure out what's wrong with you, Luffy said. I brought my fist down. Ouch. Oi, Nami, I'm concerned as your captain. I'm fine, I clenched my fist. If I have to tell you that one more time, Luffy, I promise you a swim in the Grand Line. What's wrong? Frankie interjected. Nothing's wrong, I snapped. Chopper only said my pulse was quicker than usual. I glanced at the log pose. You can straighten our course now. Is that all? Frankie laughed, following my orders. What do you mean is that all? Luffy questioned him. I thought it was quite obvious, Frankie shrugged. He didn't go on. What's obvious? Luffy asked finally. Frankie looked between the two of us, opened his mouth and shut it again. I think I'll let the two of you figure it out on your own. Luffy grumbled, stingy. He paused for a moment. Yosh, I'll go ask the others what it means. He ran off. Oi, Brook. Frankie and I watched for a moment as Luffy asked. Brook just listened for a second before laughing loudly. Yo ho ho. No worries, Luffy. She won't wither away to bones. But don't take my word for it, I'm all bones. Yo ho ho. Luffy frowned and ran off. I turned to Frankie. So what do you think is wrong with me? He looked at me for a second. You really don't know? I waited for him to answer. Yo ho ho. Brook appeared beside Frankie. My heart reaches out for you but I don't have a heart. Skeleton joke. Yo ho ho. I clenched my fist, ready to hit them both upside the head. Calm down, Nami, Frankie grinned. Then stop playing around, I muttered. You really have no reason to worry, he continued. No reason at all. Brook added. Yo ho ho. Because? I beckoned. Frankie laughed loudly. It's only love. Chapter 8. You know, Robin began, looking up from her book as I climbed onto the deck. Luffy came up to me a few minutes ago. Luffy is going up to everybody today, I muttered as I got a basket, setting it down beside one of the mikan trees. He asked me what was wrong with you, she continued in a carefree voice, ignoring my previous comment. I wasn't even looking at her, but I could tell she was just watching for my reactions. He didn't seem to believe anybody when they said you were fine. What did you tell him? I asked, looking over a mikan before picking it off the tree. That he should wait for more symptoms to develop, she chuckled. He wondered if by then it'd be too late to find a cure. He said Chopper usually said the sooner a disease was acknowledged, the better. You're getting a kick out of this. I placed the mikan in the basket gently. You, Mitsuki, Frankie, Brooke, and probably the rest of the crew alike. So you finally realize what's happening to you, she commented lightly. I stopped and shook my head. I don't know, why does it have to be an idiot like him? The mysteries of the heart, she murmured, turning her page. Have you ever loved someone? I asked. Love? She looked up, surprised. Me? Right, you were on the run for 20 years. You wouldn't get the chance to love anyone. I went back to picking ripened mikans. I paused. The same could be said for me for the past 8 years though, not having a chance to love. Trusting no one. I glanced at her slyly, meeting her gaze, unless there's someone on this boat. It was small, a downshift of her eyes, but it told me I was right. Who is it? Frankie? Sanji? Zoro? Brooke? Usopp? I paused a moment, and hesitantly added, Luffy? It's no one, she said, turning her page again. I sighed. So you make me consult with you. But I can't pry into your feelings. I can't help but think this is all a little unfair. I see where you're coming from, she said, but really, I'll talk about it when I'm ready. So why can't I wait until I'm ready? I frowned. You didn't even realize you were in love with him until someone told you. Mitsuki came up the ladder and walked up beside me. She examined the mikans before turning and marching over to Robin. She sat cross-legged beside her. I wouldn't call it in love, I murmured. I just admire him, that's all. Mitsuki rolled her eyes and muttered, just how naive can you get? I have no reason to be in love with him, I said. I gripped a mikan, staring at it for a long moment before setting it down. He's an idiot to the core. You just said you admired him, Mitsuki groaned. Come on. Get it straight already. He rescued you multiple times. He's always on your mind. Whether you think he's an idiot or whether you admire his straightforwardness, you like him. I didn't say anything. Was she right? Was I a manipulative girl in love? I hated the thought. But it was true that when I thought of Luffy my heart seemed to flutter. I placed a hand over my chest, feeling it race. Love. Was that really what this feeling was? And what did that mean for me? Was I supposed to act like Hancock, all shy around him, and barely being able to meet his gaze? As if I could barely stand to watch the Empress hang over him. Why would I do the same? Wait. Did that mean I was jealous? I couldn't have been jealous without already knowing I loved him, could I have? Nami? Mitsuki questioned my silence. Do I really? I asked absent-mindedly. She nodded. I'm surprised you haven't been in love before though. Actually, I'm surprised you didn't know you're in love now, even if you didn't have no previous experiences. And you have? I snorted. She was barely into puberty. She repeated. But he likes my older sister. The one I'm saving. He's 2 years older than me though, so I don't really find it surprising that he likes her. Without her in the picture, doesn't that leave him all to yourself? I asked. So you've had him to yourself for a year, right? She laughed. Wow, you're blunt, aren't you? Yeah, it leaves him all to me, but he's not happy. And if I had to choose I'd rather see his smile than have him unhappily beside me. Is that what it means to love? I muttered. Self-sacrifice? She said again. At least, it does to me. There are different types of love, I guess. There's possessive, and there's passive. Unrequited, like Hancock. Compassionate. Don't you want to see your captain smile? Our captain is always smiling, I said. And of course I would want him to smile. If he doesn't smile, the rest of the crew doesn't smile. You're really making yourself go around in circles, she sighed, exasperated. I can't help you if you're in denial. It's not denial, I snapped. Exhaling slowly, I rubbed my temples, and repeated more calmly, it's not denial. I'm just not sure if I could say that what I feel for him is love. But you admit you feel something for him? Mitsuki looked hopeful. The only thing I'll ever admit to is my love for money. I was starting to just want the conversation to end. Whatever, Mitsuki said, and then she looked over at Robin. Well, now that she has the idea in her head, it's all she's going to be able to think about, especially when she sees him. Robin chuckled. Can you go somewhere else? I said, exasperated. Why should we leave? Mitsuki frowned. Because I'm busy. I doubted just how much this girl was on my side. Why couldn't she go put down Hancock some more? Where was Hancock anyway? I was surprised she wasn't in my face if Luffy asked her about my heart racing. Did he ask her yet? Would he? Then I'm going to go get Luffy-kun up here. Mitsuki jumped to her feet. No, I leapt for her as she ran to the ladder. Robin's hands grabbed my feet, and I fell forward. Stop it, don't. I laughed as Robin's multiple hands tickled me. I slapped her hands away, and glared at her. Next time you do that, you owe me 10,000 belly. Just admit it, Mitsuki said from beside the ladder before Robin could respond to me. Somewhere between your island and the new world, you fell for him, hard. She was grinning deviously. If you want me to admit anything, I turned to Robin, then I want to know the one you're in love with. Give me a day, Mitsuki said. And I could tell you that too. Just like you read the waves, Nami, I can read the love between two people. I scoffed. Even if that were true, I'd rather hear it from Robin's mouth than some kids. I'm not a kid, Mitsuki said defensively. I've been traveling the Grand Line for months on my own. That doesn't make you mature, I told her. I turned to my fellow female nakama. Robin? Won't you tell me, please? Perhaps at a later date. Robin stood up. She pushed her long hair over her shoulder as she walked away. Don't you want to hear her admit it? Mitsuki complained. Luffy and Nami see each other every day. Robin smiled down at her. It doesn't really matter if Nami realizes her feeling right this instant. She ruffled the girl's hair before passing her by. Hey, Mitsuki, come help me here. I called to her as Robin climbed down the ladder and into the kitchen. You need help? She asked, coming over. I don't need it, I told her, but help is always nice. She agreed. I wondered if she were making reference to us helping her. See these right here? I picked up one of Miken's I'd already placed in the basket. This is what you're looking for on these trees right here. Here, hold it. This one's ripe? She asked, passing it from one palm to another. I said, taking another off the branch of the tree in front of me. Try to pick one similar to that one there. Look for similar weight, size, and color. If you're not sure, don't touch it. If you pick one that's not ripe yet, I'll cut your hands off. She laughed. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. I looked down at her. No, I knew you weren't kidding, she said, examining the fruit extra carefully before picking it off the branch. ISMIS quick to catch on. Just by watching you I can tell that these trees are important to you. I said. Not many ships have trees on them, she commented. I thought you already knew our ship isn't like any other. I do, she said. She dismissed the next Miken. This ship will one day belong to the man that holds the title of the Pirate King. I felt the corners of my lips twitch as I spoke, and quickly fought them down to a straight face. An amazing ship for an amazing pirate. Exactly, I said, watching her pick another Miken. Her pace was slow, which I enjoyed, meaning I could watch her as I worked at my own pace. She was silent for a moment, and then hesitantly she said, So you're really going to deny your feelings? I didn't say anything for the longest time. I don't know. I just find it hard to believe I could be in love with a guy like him. You mean the guy that you're indebted to? She said. Hey, he's in debt to me. I told her firmly, by 51,642 belly, to be exact. Some memory you got there, she noted. I guess, I replied. Robin's memory was probably greater than mine. The heart has a greater memory though. She placed the Miken down and shivered in a chilly breeze. I just looked at her before opening my mouth. You know, you. Nami. Luffy shot over the railing, practically giving me a heart attack. Mitsuki looked just as surprised as I was. Oi, Nami, I know what's wrong with you. Oh, I exchanged glances with Mitsuki, who was grinning more like an idiot than Luffy was. Usopp told me, he laughed. I see. Oh, this should be good. What did Usopp say? Indigestion, Luffy proudly announced. Nami, are you constip? I hit him over the head. Don't be ridiculous, and don't ask those kinds of things to a lady. He rubbed his head. So Usopp lied? Does it really surprise you? I asked. But he was the only one that gave me a straightforward answer. He crossed his legs as he sat on the deck. I'm feeling fine, I told him, turning back to the mic and trees. Suddenly his hand grabbed my wrist, and I turned to see him sitting there still, his arm extended over the distance, and he had his other hand against his neck. My heart nearly stopped beating entirely for a second. No, it had to be my imagination. I couldn't be in love with Luffy, because well, I mean, come on, it was Luffy. She, he laughed. Chopper taught me how to check pulses. I see that, I commented, and, do you feel it? Your pulse isn't fast, he exclaimed. He must be crazy, because even I could feel my heart racing inside my chest. Were they right? Was this really what it felt like to be in love? It was just his hand on my wrist. It was nothing to get excited about. Damn it. Mitsuki was right. Now that we had spoken about it, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. Not fast. Mitsuki grabbed my other wrist, measuring my heart rate for herself. Luffy-kun, what are you talking about? Her heart is racing. He looked confused. Really? It doesn't feel that way to me? How couldn't it? She must have really begun thinking that our captain was an idiot. But it's the same as, land ho, Frankie exclaimed from the front of the ship. Luffy's hand released my wrist, and he jumped onto the railing. He grinned down at me as I walked up beside him. She, Nami, do you see it? I do, I told him. It's a red and orange island. What's the name of this island again? He asked. Akaki Island, I said. And that red color is from the leaves of trees. AKA Key. Red Tree Island, and Autumn Island. Luffy, Hancock waved from below. I prepared snacks for exploring the island. She, he laughed. Great, I was getting hungry. You ate 2 hours ago, I rolled my eyes. I could feel Hancock's glare as Luffy focused on me again. I wanted to stick my tongue out at her again, but I refrained. Really? He grinned. It feels like longer. We'll eat dinner on the island, I promised him. But you'll have to wait another 3 hours. That's so long, he pouted. You have snacks prepared for you to tide you over until then, I reminded him. I really want to explore this island. He rocked back and forth on the railing. We will, I said. Just wait until Frankie lets the anchor down. We'll all go together. A breeze lightly blew over us again. The island was really pretty when the wind blew the leaves. It was like a red wave above the sea. Cold? He asked as I shivered. Well, the weather was nice up until now, I told him. I'm going to go grab a sweater. Hi, he said, turning back to the bow of the ship, watching as we steadily neared the island. I watched his profile for a moment before going and grabbing the basket, and then climbing down to the dining room. I went to the fridge, unlocking its heavy door and emptying the basket into the small shelf I used specifically for my mycons. Sanji knew better than to touch them. I would make a small dessert or something later with them. Maybe a salad. It depended on my mood, really. So, Mitsuki asked. So what? I tried to brush off her questions. I bet you 10,000 belly that you're fully aware that you're in love, she smiled widely. Here's a tip for you, an up-and-coming thief and money lover, I told her as I opened the door to the deck. What? She asked. Don't make bets unless you know you have at least 3/4 of the chance of winning. I walked down the stairs, heading for my bedroom on the other second-floor deck. Mitsuki kept close. Why's that? I shook my head, opening my door. When I opened my closet, I was faced with a hard decision. What would I look the best in? Not that it mattered to. Nami, hey, why don't you use honorifics with my name? I asked suddenly. You didn't answer my question, she laughed. You'd lose your money otherwise, I told her. Is that it? She said. I thought that'd be obvious. It is obvious, but you look like the type to jump on instinct. I slipped my arms into a sweater. I hadn't worn this one yet. So, she asked. So, you should use reason rather than? Not that, she grinned. I watched her for a moment before going to my treasure chest and retrieved a bit of the gold I took from the other ship, and placed it in her hands. She grinned as she took her bag off her shoulder, placing it carefully inside before closing it and throwing it back over her shoulder. Happy? I asked begrudgingly. But this doesn't mean I'm admitting to anything, all right? She nodded, and I wanted to hit that satisfied look off her face. Aren't you happy too? As if, I snorted. I'm never happy after losing 10,000 belly.